We've become more interested in some of the food additives and how they become approved and how long it takes, because we've got some companies that are interested in Kentucky that sell algae that's high in omega-3 to feed to cows to try to, then have more omega-3 in the milk, and same with chickens and things like that. This process and this algae is for sale in Canada and Europe, and they tell this company here, oh, you need to do some pre-approval study that'll cost $500,000 before you can even get started. And it's like, I don't know, it just seems to take a long time. I think some are estimating 3 to 5 years, but 2 and 3 years in the European Union. And it's like, well, if it's already been approved in the European Union, we're talking about feeding salad to a cow, we're talking about feeding algae to a cow, something that's naturally occurring. Should it really take 5 years to figure this out and a couple extra years to have a pre-study done? Is there something we can do better? Can we look at foreign data more? Are we looking at foreign data?
So thank you for the question. So the approval process has several mechanisms for food additives. Once again, it's important to recognize that for our animals, that often the food that we give them is the sole food that they consume versus the varied diet that we humans eat. And therefore, it's important to assure the safety for the animals and also the human food safety associated with it. So we do have processes for food additive petitions, generally recognized as safe notifications for food ingredients. We do use foreign data when it's appropriate to the type of growing conditions and for the type of feedstuffs we use in the United States.
Yeah, but it seems to me if it's approved in Canada and Europe, you could just look at their studies. A committee could meet, and over half the time you could just approve it. That's never happening. It still takes you years and years and years, and they're being asked for even a protocol study before they even do their study, and they're not even assured of even getting to their study because you're requiring that, and it's already approved and being used all over the world. And it's like, so I don't really think you are using the foreign studies the way they ought to be used. I think you really ought to review them, and there's a good chance, I would say a very good chance, you ought to be able to just look at them and approve them. Are you ever looking at foreign studies of things we're doing in Europe or Canada and just approving them without making them do all the studies again?
We do use data from other countries, as I mentioned before, on the drug side of the house.
Have you ever approved any food additive without making them repeat all the studies or repeat studies in our country?
We need to assess the validity of the data collected in another country and see how applicable it is to the United States.
We don't ever approve them just for the foreign studies. We make them repeat studies again. So, that is a question. We have, so for example, we're growing hemp now, and hemp is, I think, naturally high in omega-3. If I want to feed the roots of a hemp plant to a cow, do I have to go to the FDA to ask for permission to do that?
Once again, if it's a new feed ingredient that's not been evaluated for safety or
seems kind of crazy if it's not a drug. If it's just something that grows in the ground and we're going to feed it to our cows, and somehow I got to go through a 5-year process to ask your permission to do it. I don't know. I would think we ought to be able to do this better, Mr. Chairman. We talk about ways to fix this. There's got to be a way to get them to look at foreign studies. They say they're going to do it, but then they don't. Or they do it and they still make our companies repeat all these studies. There's got to be a way we can speed this up. It puts us at a competitive disadvantage. And really, we're talking about, feeding algae. We're talking about feeding something naturally growing to animals, and so as a supplement. And I think we've got to figure out a way to make the process better. Do you have any suggestions, or do you think we're doing a good job doing this? 3 to 5 years seems like a long time. It's longer than the rest of the world. And you're making a company that's already gone through this process and another part of the world go through it again. So really, if they've done 2 years in Canada or 3 years in Europe, now we're doing 3 to 5 years on top of what they've already done in other countries and having to repeat all the same studies again. I just think for something that's being ingested by animals, it might be excessive.
So we continue to look at efficiencies in the program. There's been a 150% increase in food additive petitions over the past several years. There's been a 3-fold increase in generally recognized as safe petitions. We want to use the foreign animal data used in other countries when it's applicable to conditions in the United States.
Is the current process too long, or is the current process just fine?
I think there's always opportunities for improvement, and we'll continue to look at those.
We will make America great again.